Does your home feel dry? Your skin feel itchy? Your hardwood floors are cracking? And of course, every time you touch your doorknob, you're getting attacked by static. Now, it's not your imagination, it's just your winter humidity. And today I'll show you why it happens and how to solve for it.
No sales gimmicks, no confusion, just expert advice to help you stay comfortable and save money. And now, the Information for Customer Success Show.
Welcome back to the Information for Customer Success, and today we are talking about something every homeowner feels in the winter but rarely understands, and that's low humidity. I did a show on summertime humidity, so this is slightly different. Wintertime humidity has its different nuances. So let's go back to the beginning. What is humidity? Now, humidity is just the amount of moisture in the air, and the colder the air is, the less moisture it can hold. That's the entire story, and it drives almost every comfort problem we see in the wintertime. Why is that? Now, in the wintertime, the air outside is cold and naturally very dry because cold air can't hold that much humidity. So when the air leaks into your house, and it surely does, I can tell you almost every house has some level of infiltration of leakage inside the house. It gets pulled through, ventilation, through other things, through doors and windows. It drops your indoor humidity. Sometimes in the teens, I've seen even single digits. And that's when the problem starts. So you've probably experienced this. One of the most common health or, human effects of very low humidity is going to be dry skin, scratchy throat. And of course, if you ever got static shock on a consistent basis, not something weird that happened where you dragged your socks across the carpet, but especially on doorknobs, I've been in houses where every time I touch any door, any doorknob, I will get a static shock. You see the cracking hardwood floors and or furniture. You've got gaps forming in the door trims and stairs. And of course, you've got higher heating bills. Why? Because when the air feels dry, we tend to raise the temperature up because we're not comfortable. It's dry at a certain temperature. We don't feel comfortable, so we raise the temperature up to feel more comfortable. And yes, all of that means low humidity. All right, so you think you know what I'm going to say. So most people jump straight into, I need a humidifier. Yeah, a lot of times you do, but sometimes adding humidity into a certain house can cause other problems. And let me explain. So we're talking about these older houses. Your windows are old. Your house is not very well insulated. You have a lot of air leakage issues. It is probably not the best scenario for a humidifier because it can cause a lot of problems. If the humidity climbs too high, it starts to create condensation on windows and walls, and of course in the attic as well, and you might get mold issues. So humidifier is not always 100% recommended. If you live in a 1980s house and newer, of course, humidifier is always the answer, but I'm talking about those older homes that have not been upgraded in terms of the envelope of the house. So when does a humidifier make sense? A properly installed, properly sized whole house humidifier is fantastic, when these criteria are met. Your house is tight and well insulated. Your heating system dries the air a little too much. You want consistently higher comfort. And you have, of course, these problems I described, like hardwood floors cracking and, itchy throat and things of that sort. The key is to, when you have a humidifier, is to control the amount of humidity. Not too little, and of course not too much, because even a well-insulated house, you're going to run into issues controlling that humidity in the wintertime. So how do you know you really need a humidifier? I mean, obviously you could have all those problems I described, but you could also not have all those problems described. And occasionally you feel, dry skin. You might have gotten a shock once, in a month or something, and you're perhaps thinking, maybe I need a humidifier, maybe I don't. Well, the best way is to obviously measure it. So get yourself a hygrometer, get even a cheap one from Amazon, from anywhere else, place it in a central location in the house where you feel like the reading is going to make sense for the humidity. Give it time. Humidity does vary. Humidity gets affected by many conditions. Do not place it in the kitchen. Do not place it by a bathroom where you're going to be taking showers. Just place it in a sort of a neutral location where you're going to get a very, very average reading of the house. Or if you have many of them, put many around the house. But take a measurement. There's going to be wet days. There's going to be days where it's raining, the humidity is high outside, therefore the humidity inside will be higher. You want to really find out what is your worst humidity day. In the winter, when it's dry and it's cold outside, how much humidity do you have in the house? Now, if you're in the teens, you definitely need a humidifier. If you're in the low 20s, I would say you need a humidifier as well, although, if you only hit that low 20s every now and then, it may not be that big of a deal. But if you're in the high 20s and in the 30s, your humidity is pretty good. So we are not measuring humidity the same way we measure it in the summertime. In the summertime, we hope to be somewhere between 40 and 60 degrees, ideally. But in the wintertime, if you are above 40 degrees, and you're in a certain climate like the Northeast where I am at, you're going to experience a lot of issues in the house, like frequent condensation on the windows. And of course, that water, that condensation on the window is going to settle on the sills of the frames, and it's going to create just damage. And there's stuff you don't see. There's going to be condensation in other places, like inside the walls or somewhere else that you are not seeing. And of course, the end result, the thing we always fear with humidity is mold. So you don't want to go above 40 degrees. After, actually, in our company, we have a very safe number where your target should be 35%. Around 70 degrees indoor, 35%. If you're getting 35% on a dry winter day, you're doing pretty well. That's a good safety net. Now, you can get a humidifier. There's certain humidifiers that will definitely take you higher. Do you want to be higher? I would say be extremely cautious. Pay attention to what is going on, because it may be good during the day. You leave that humidifier on at 40, 45%. You wake up in the morning and every window is just water, right? It's just condensation everywhere. And that is actually a huge problem. Not only because, of course, you've got wooden, sills and things of that sort that will get damaged, but also, again, it's going to be the problems you don't see, the condensation you did not see, not the stuff you saw. It's the condensation you did not see happening somewhere in your house, and that is a huge, huge problem. So wintertime humidity, ideally, your high point should be 35%. You shouldn't be any lower than 25%. So don't fear, humidity gets affected pretty fast depending on your house again. You may experience situations where it gets really, really cold outside, it gets really, really dry, and all of a sudden your humidity dips, and it dips, maybe a little bit about below 25%. Don't fear, right? Don't fear that number. It will happen. It will swing one way or the other way. But what you'd want to do, again, set your humidifier no more than 35% relative humidity. Establish you need a humidifier. Now, what kind of a humidifier do I get? To me, in a residential industry, there are really three types of humidifiers that your companies will suggest you. And really, majority of companies actually operate with only like two of them. And I'll explain what it is. And let's just say that my experience, and of course me giving you advice on here, is based on my Northeast climate experience. So what I'm saying may not apply 100% perfectly to down south, which you probably don't need much humidity, and anywhere else as well. So I'm going to explain humidifiers from the Northeast perspective here. Okay, the three types of humidifiers are going to be a bypass, a fan-powered humidifier, and a steam humidifier. Let's dive into what a bypass humidifier is. Bypass humidifier, this is one of those humidifiers that every big box retail HVAC furnace installer still has and pushes because it's cheap and it's extremely easy to install. Here's the problem. A bypass humidifier uses your furnace blower and what's called a duct bypass to move air across a wet pad. Sounds very simple, but in the real world, it creates more issues than it solves a lot of times. Now, how do you know you have a bypass humidifier? Number one, I'm going to say if you have a humidifier home, most likely it's bypass, because that's what everybody sticks to, because again, it's simple, they push it, it's cheap. If you have that metal pipe somewhere, if you go buy your equipment in the basement and you have your furnace, you'll see a 6-inch metal pipe going from the return duct to the supply duct to some plastic box. That's the humidifier. So if that metal duct, sometimes it's done in flex, it really shouldn't be, but if you have that metal duct going across the supply and the return ductwork, you have a bypass humidifier. Why bypass humidifiers are a bad idea? Low output. They barely add moisture, unless the furnace is running nonstop. They're an energy waste. They rely on the furnace heat cycle instead of adding humidity independently. And the energy waste basically means they waste a lot of water. Backdraft risk. They can pull combustion gases in the wrong direction in all their equipment, sometimes depending on how they're installed. Duct contamination. Moisture drifts through the bypass duct, encouraging mold growth inside that duct. And equipment stress. You're changing, manipulating static pressure between the supply and return. You're also bypassing either cold air or hot air, because I'm going to say cold air because a lot of times there's a damper on that bypass humidifier, and homeowners always forget to switch it from summer to winter. Or from winter to summer, rather. And what happens is that now you have air conditioning air just kind of bypassing and getting the air conditioning equipment, the coil, actually really cold, a lot colder. You're wasting energy, and you're actually freezing that coil. And you're doing the same thing in the heating cycle. You're heating up your heat exchanger, and a lot of times past its sort of operating limits, where you're really stressing out and adding additional heat to the heat exchanger, and you're causing premature failure. So simply they don't produce humidity. They don't produce enough humidity. It's not worth it unless you have a very, very tight house and you have a very, very specifically sized, appropriately sized piece of equipment where that furnace producing hot air runs a very, very long time during the day. If it turns on and off frequently, it's just not good. But mostly, I don't like it because it does produce the extracurricular activities around the equipment that it shouldn't.
Putting a bypass humidifier on a coil is a big no-no. You can see this is the coil of the system, and that's where they have it.
Next is sort of a solution for a bypass humidifier. It's a fan-powered humidifier, so it looks just like a bypass humidifier, except it doesn't have the bypass. It just has a fan. So instead of using your actual furnace's blower and its heat to evaporate the wet pad, it has its own fan. So why I like it a lot better? Number one, you're not using that bypass. You're not creating all those issues I just talked about with the bypass humidifier. Instead, it relies, on the furnace just to pull air through it and distribute, throughout the house. So it has a higher humidity output. The fan actively moves air across the pad for better moisture production. It works even during low furnace run times. It actually doesn't need the furnace to technically run a lot of times in heating mode because, again, it's got a fan that's going over the wet pad, so it's doing some kind of evaporation. Now, it still evaporates better or best if you have heat going through the system, but it doesn't 100% rely on heat for evaporation. Less water waste. And generally, it's reliable, it's simple, and it's just a little bit more money than a bypass humidifier. They're kind of very comparable costs. For homes that need modest humidity control, a fan power unit is the baseline I recommend. I don't recommend a bypass. We don't install a bypass. We never will install a bypass. All we do is take them out every single day. So you might as well guess that the steam humidifier is the gold standard of humidifiers. If you want to guarantee humidity, you get a steam humidifier. It's the premium option, there's no doubt. It's going to cost you the most amount of money to install, but obviously it's got extreme benefits. So why steam humidifiers are the best? They're the best because it adds humidity on demand without heat. You can increase the humidity in your house just like that. Anywhere we install steam humidifiers, and I have steam humidifiers in my house, basically they turn on, you immediately feel and you can measure the humidity level rising. So it adds humidity on demand. Very precise control. So whereas the bypass and even the fan power humidifiers, when the humidity dips, they sometimes just don't have that enough capacity to add enough humidity at a certain pace. They add humidity, but it's very minimal. This, if you size the steam humidifier correctly, they'll have enough capacity to just immediately kind of direct the humidity right where you want it to be. I mean, there will still be swings depending on what's going on outside with the weather, but not as much. I mean, you can definitely pinpoint its accuracy. It's got the highest output. It's ideal for larger homes or homes with leaky envelopes where you need a little bit more robust capacity of humidity. And of course, this is my favorite one. So it pairs perfectly with variable speed systems, heat pump systems, and air conditioning only systems. So bypass humidifier would not work almost at all if you just put it on an air conditioning only system. So a lot of people don't have furnaces for hot air. They have boiler systems with radiators. So when you do a bypass or even a fan powered one, they're just not effective because you have no hot air to help evaporate that. Steam humidifier doesn't need that. It can be installed on your air conditioning system, heat pump system, which has obviously less heat output. So they're perfect to pair with that. It's the control, it's the performance, it's the consistency. It is the gold standard. Now, because steam humidifiers have such a robust capacity of humidity, of course, we have to be able to control them, and they could be dangerous if you let them run, wild and just produce humidity in your house. So imagine if, I just pumped steam into your house 24/7, you'd have issues. So when installing a steam humidifier, there are a lot of safety controls, and we as a company do a lot of them. And one of the things when you go and you ask your HVAC professional about steam humidifiers, if they have never installed one, if they're uncertain about them or haven't done many, be careful, because they could be installed wrong when they are problematic, and they will be a perfect mold growing source for you. So one of the things you have to do is, not take shortcuts with steam humidifiers. There's a couple things that we always do, and we do them because we've installed thousands of steam humidifiers in $1 million homes where the woodwork and everything else and artwork needs, not only precise control, but obviously if any accidents happen, we'd be liable for a lot of damages. So the simplest control that everybody puts in is, of course, some kind of a humidistat, whether that's on the return duct or in the space. That lets the space know whether or not, that lets the humidifier know whether or not it needs to turn on to add humidity into the space. But controls could go bad. What if just it gets stuck? And, we've had that happen. What if it gets stuck and tells the humidifier to keep pumping more steam in? That could be a problem. So an airproof switch, that's one of the things you need. What does an airproof switch do? It makes sure that there's airflow in the ductwork, because if there's no airflow, we're just pumping steam into that ductwork and it's not moving anywhere. Again, perfect mold growing situation. So airproof switch will ensure that there's air movement going on before the humidifier can turn on. A duct high limit. Now, airproof switch and humidistat is what probably 99% of your average HVAC companies do. Everything I'm about to talk about now, you have to be extremely careful. A lot of companies do not do these, but they should. So a duct high limit is a controller that is a little bit further back from your steam distributor. Your steam distributor is the point of injection of the steam inside your ductwork. So you're injecting steam inside your ductwork. The steam flows a certain direction with the ductwork, and a little bit further down, at least depending on the manufacturer, depending on the scenario, at least 4 feet to 10 feet down, we want to put a controller in to say, hey, what is the measurement of humidity inside the ductwork? We do want to make sure we're not saturated and not condensating in that ductwork. So we put a duct high limit that will cut off the humidifier in case the humidity gets a little bit too high in the ductwork. So that's one controller that's above and beyond what most people do. But secondly, there's also a supply temperature controller. So what is that? Well, if we have an AC system on the ductwork, which most likely you do, even when you have a furnace, we have those crazy days in the wintertime where things get a little hot. You invited the family over, you got 30, 40 people, it's hot and stuffy in the house, you bump that air conditioning system on, and now you have air conditioning. Now, air conditioning is cold air. So if you have a humidifier going and you have cold air moving through your ductwork, what's going to happen? You guessed it, it's going to condensate. You're going to get condensation all inside your ductwork, and you don't even know what's happening. So a supply air temperature will be set to operate only in a certain range of temperature. So we want to make sure that the air is never too cold where the humidity will meet its dew point and condense inside. So that is a safety mechanism that we put in that I've hardly ever see any other contractor do, but we do it again because we've done thousands of these, and we personally have made mistakes of not putting stuff like this in. You put all these safeties in, you figure, hey, it's going to work perfectly, and then somebody comes along and does something you didn't expect, which is put air conditioning on in the wintertime. So this prevents your humidifier from running when somebody puts in cold air into the system. So if you're going to get a steam humidifier, make sure it's done correctly. It's a big investment. I always tell my customers, whether you pay $4,000 or $7,000 for a humidifier install, you're spending a lot of money, right? Yeah, you want a nickel and dime it? Sure. Maybe you don't need a steam humidifier, don't get one. But if you're going to get something done, get it done correctly so it doesn't cause problems, it solves your issue, and it's good for a longevity of its life. It doesn't have problems. So humidifier is one of those dangerous appliances. That's what I tell everybody. If it goes wild, goes amok, it creates catastrophic issues for you, not just flooding from your ceiling because your ducts are condensating inside your ceiling somewhere, but also, the scary word of mold, and ask your insurance company how expensive mold damages could get. So my recap over here is bypass humidifiers, don't install them, problematic, outdated. 80-year-old technology. Fan power humidifiers, they're good, they're reliable, they're still cheap for most homes. Steam humidifiers, gold standard, best performance, best comfort, especially for newer or higher-end homes. And if you want your home to feel like it's supposed to all winter long and you want predictable results, you get yourself a steam humidifier. All right, I hope you guys learned something about wintertime humidity. If you have any questions, very simple, write me an email to questions@icshvac.com, and please subscribe, like it, share it, encourage me to do more topical things about HVAC stuff that matters to you in your home.